Welcome back to the deep dive. We're kicking things off today looking at some pretty interesting news that surfaced in early July, though it seems it actually started back in late April.
That's right. It's about Foxconn, Apple's main iPhone assembler. They've apparently asked over 300 Chinese engineers and technicians to head back home from their facilities in southern India.
And this isn't just some routine shuffling, is it? It's happening right when Apple is supposed to be seriously ramping up iPhone 17 production in India.
Exactly. And you have to see it in the context of Apple's larger goal. They're aiming to shift something like 20%, maybe more, of their U.S.-bound iPhone manufacturing to India by late 2026. So yeah, the timing is critical.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. Let's get past the headlines. We need to unpack first the immediate operational stuff for Foxconn, and then, maybe more importantly, the bigger picture, the geopolitical ripples, the economics of it all.
What does it really signal? Yeah.
Yeah. So, starting with the immediate fallout. Taiwanese staff are still there, right? But losing 300 experienced Chinese specialists, that's gotta hurt operations right away.
Oh, absolutely. Look, Taiwanese support is important, but these Chinese engineers, they often bring really deep, specific know-how. Their sudden absence definitely creates immediate operational hurdles for Foxconn. You lose that embedded expertise quickly.
That sounds like a major headache, but is there maybe a silver lining? Could this actually, paradoxically, push things in a different direction long-term, force a change?
Well, that's the interesting angle. It could accelerate India's own journey towards becoming a, high-precision manufacturing player. This might just force Foxconn and Apple to invest more heavily and faster in training local Indian engineers.
Just sort of catalyzing local skill development out of necessity.
Precisely. It also plays into reducing geopolitical risk. Less reliance on personnel from mainland China helps insulate the supply chain, especially with all the U.S.-China trade tensions. Makes things potentially more resilient.
And that fits neatly with India's own strategy, doesn't it? The whole Make in India push, the PLI scheme production-linked incentive.
Yeah, it aligns almost perfectly. The PLI scheme is all about boosting domestic jobs, especially high-skill ones in electronics. So this situation, even if it wasn't planned this way by India, kind of forces the hand in a way that supports their goals.
Okay, makes sense from a strategic national perspective. But what's the trade-off? Are they losing something crucial by swapping out that specific Chinese expertise? Trading one kind of risk for another, maybe?
That's the core tension, absolutely. A big con is potentially slower technology transfer. These Chinese engineers, they possess deep knowledge of tooling, complex assembly processes, things Tim Cook himself apparently called irreplaceable.
Irreplaceable, wow. So their departure could really slow down the on-the-job training for the new Indian hires.
It certainly could impede that crucial knowledge transfer, yeah. Especially during this critical ramp-up phase for the iPhone 17.
And if you lose that expertise, efficiency probably takes a hit too, right? Industry experts are flagging that.
They are. There are warnings about a potential dip in assembly line throughput that risks delays in hitting those iPhone 17 targets Apple has set.
So it's not just a temporary hiccup potentially, and costs. I assume hiring and training new people isn't cheap.
No, definitely not. Whether they bring in more people from Taiwan or maybe Vietnam or invest heavily in upskilling locally, it likely means higher training and operational costs, at least in the short term.
So looking forward, could this push Foxconn towards more automation? Like invest more in robotics to reduce dependency on specialized human expertise altogether?
That's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
The loss of that specific manual skill set could accelerate investments in automation. It's a way to build resilience against exactly this kind of personnel disruption.
But automating complex assembly isn't instant. So does this put that 2026 target, what was it, 25% of US-bound iPhones from India? Does that seem less likely now?
It might. Some analysts are already suggesting it could slip, maybe by a year. It adds another layer of complexity to hitting that ambitious timeline.
Which brings us back to the why now. What's the geopolitical backdrop here? It feels like more than just a staffing issue.
Oh, it definitely seems to be. There are reports, though maybe informal, that Beijing has been quietly discouraging the transfer of high-end equipment and personnel to places like India and Southeast Asia, sort of trying to slow down that industrial shift away from China.
An informal export control, almost. And what about India's own policies? I read something about visa numbers for Chinese nationals dropping significantly.
Yeah, that's part of the mix, too. India cut Chinese work visas way down from around 200,000 in 2019 to just maybe 2,000 recently. Now, there are exceptions for these PLI-linked projects, but that inconsistency might have played a role in Foxconn's decision calculus.
So it really highlights that whole US-China decoupling tension, with companies like Apple caught in the middle trying to diversify.
Exactly. Beijing seems resistant to tech giants moving key production out. Meanwhile, India's government is walking a fine line, publicly saying industry can hire globally, but also monitoring and working with Foxconn on local talent solutions. It's delicate.
Okay, so wrapping this up for you, our listener, what's the bottom line here? Short term, it looks like a really tricky balancing act for Apple and Foxconn.
Definitely. They need to keep iPhone 17 production on track while somehow building up India's domestic skills base much faster than planned. High stakes.
But longer term, if they manage it, this could seriously strengthen India's whole manufacturing ecosystem, right?
It could, absolutely. But it's a big but. Only if that ramp up in local skills and maybe automation too keeps pace with Apple's very aggressive expansion plans.
So, the final thought to leave you with, what does this whole episode really tell us about the future? How companies navigate this new world where supply chain decisions are as much about geopolitics and resilience as they are about pure efficiency. Something to chew on. Join us next time on The Deep Dive.